Warning, you may have regrets if you start solo traveling. You're gonna regret not solo traveling much sooner. Taking my first solo trip back in 2019 has been the most empowering and transformational thing I have ever done. Over 6 years later, I have traveled to over 20 countries solo, and it is because I have refused to let not having anybody to go with stop me. I figured that travel is a childhood dream, so I gotta make it happen with or without anyone. And over the years, something that initially seemed like my only real option has since become my preference. I love traveling solo. I get to choose my journey. I can do what I want, when I want. I can push myself out of my comfort zone, and I can meet people and have experiences that I probably wouldn't have had if I was traveling with other people. Solo travel has changed my life, and I want 2026 to be the year that you start solo traveling and you see for yourself how awesome it is, and that it's not boring, it's not lonely, it's not scary, it's empowering, it's fulfilling, and it's a lot better than not going at all. But I do understand that the idea of solo travel seems very daunting, especially because travel with or without anyone requires a lot of planning, budgeting, and you just don't really know what's gonna happen. You do have to just take a leap of faith and trust that everything's gonna work out okay. I know that the idea of traveling alone somewhere, especially to another country, seems very scary and very overwhelming, and I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. That fear never goes away. I still get nervous before every single trip, but you just get a lot better at feeling the fear, but still doing it anyway. I just want you to know that solo travel is possible regardless of your job, your income, your experience level. Like, solo travel is possible and it is obtainable for so many people. I think people disqualify themselves before they even try. They just have it in their head that, oh, solo travel is so expensive, it's so unsafe, it's so all of these things. And then they don't even try. They don't even take the steps to look into it. And I completely understand that because I had all of those beliefs as well, but it really just took taking that first trip to see just how possible it is. And now that I know it's possible, I can just keep going on them. I really do think that solo travel is a lot more possible than people tend to assume. So the whole point of this video is just to show you how you can make solo travel happen for yourself. In this video, I'm gonna show you why solo travel is such a valuable investment in yourself. I'm also going to give you all the resources that you need to get started. I will also address a lot of the common hesitations and worries that keep people from solo traveling, such as like safety, fear of loneliness, language barriers. And then I'm also going to give some of my personal solo travel recommendations for beginners. And by the way, if you're looking for more travel info and inspo, you should totally follow me and just join this community of travelers. And with that, let's get into it. So let's start on why solo travel is such a valuable investment in yourself. There are very few constants in life, and one of those constants is that things are always gonna change. But another constant is that in this lifetime, the one guarantee that you will have is that you will have yourself. We are the only person that we are guaranteed to have throughout our entire life. So we may as well learn to enjoy our own company. We may as well start to get to know ourselves. I think that for a long time, just doing things alone was considered really embarrassing. Like, you're a total friendless loner if you go to dinner by yourself or go to the movies by yourself, let alone take a trip by yourself. I was once called a loner for just staying in on a Friday night. Like, you know, people really have a very weird view of loneliness. I do think that that attitude is starting to shift. I've definitely been seeing a little bit of a vibe switch on social media, which I love, but I do think that a lot of people do still feel weird about doing things alone. There's a very big difference between doing something alone and being a loner. You can enjoy your own company, you can go out to dinner on your own, you can go to the movies by yourself, you can go on a trip by yourself and still have a very full social life. I have fantastic friends and family, and I travel solo. Both can be true at the same time. Going on a solo trip is not only a really wonderful way to spend time with yourself and just to get to know yourself better, it's also a really good way to build character. You do the planning and the problem solving and you handle all of the logistics, and when everything goes pretty well, you're like, okay, cool, I can do this. Like, it's empowering. I remember when I traveled to another country by myself, when I got home, I was like, okay, what else can I do? Like, that went really well. Like, I'm clearly capable of this. Just, it's very empowering to just do something on your own and just make it work. And plus, when you solo travel, you see that life isn't so scary after all. Like, by pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and by facing your fears, you realize that there wasn't really anything to be afraid of. It really does just take going on your first solo trip to see how self-sufficient you are and how doable it is, And it really just, it expands your worldview. You build confidence and then you realize, okay, I was scared, but that doesn't mean that it was scary. Plus you get to meet incredible people, you get to make amazing memories, and that impacts you. You didn't just see famous landmarks, you ate the local cuisine. You met incredible people. You learn something new. You take something back home with you when you travel, and it's really powerful. You have so much to gain. It's not just, okay, I'm gonna check a country off the list. Solo travel really is a personal investment. I just really think that seeing the world and learning about yourself in the process is one of the greatest joys, and it's something that I think everyone should experience at least once in their life. So then with that, it's time to talk about just how to make solo travel possible, and I think that a big part of that is just knowing where to start. So I'm going to give you 5 main resources plus a little bonus that I think that everybody who wants to plan their solo trip and go on the trip needs to know. Because I think that what really turns people off from solo traveling is just not having the right resources or feeling really overwhelmed on where to start. So here are the 5 websites or resources that you gotta know, plus a little fun bonus. So number 1 might be the most important. Just before you go anywhere, you need to understand the entry requirements and the safety situation of whatever country you're entering. And you can find that on just the Department of Travel website for your country. So I'm American, I'll use the US Department of Travel. And let's say I am going to Thailand. I need to know what it takes to enter Thailand. It's so important. People think that you just need a passport to travel. No, that's just step 1. How old your passport is matters. How many empty visa pages on your passport matters. And every country is gonna have slightly different requirements. Some places you can visit visa-free for a certain amount of time. Some you have to apply for a visa ahead of time, either online or by mail. With the US passport, the by mail part only applies to just a handful of countries. Or you may be able to get a visa on arrival. You need to know these things. You need to know if there is any arrival card or just any requirements to enter. You also need to know, is this country safe? Now on the US travel advisory, there's 4 levels. Personally, if a country is a level 1 or 2, I will visit with no hesitation. If a country is level 3, I would just weigh the pros and cons. I'm actually currently in the process of planning a trip that the US sees as a level 3. I have no hesitations visiting just based off where I'm going, what I'm doing, and the research I've done. I've decided that it's worth it. But I always check the safety situation and I see if there's any specific areas I need to avoid. Because the reality is that if a country is a level 3, a reconsidered travel, it's not necessarily that the whole country's dangerous. There's just pockets of dangerous places. If you're traveling solo, you need to understand the safety situation and you need to understand worst case scenario. I'll talk more about my safety tips that you should be following anywhere a little bit later. The next resource you are gonna need is Google Flights. Google Flights is the only way that I look for flights. And that's really because it's the most broad. It's also very user-friendly because it's gonna compare different prices. You can set flexible dates. You can also just pick a week and then just find a destination that has cheap flights. That's actually a really kind of secret way to save money. Just your biggest expense is almost always going to be the flight there. So just finding ways that you can get the best deal for that is going to be really worthwhile. And just seeing your flight options, seeing if you have to take a layover or if it's more worth taking a direct flight. My advice is it's often worth paying a little bit more for direct if the option is there. But again, everybody has different budgets and different circumstances. And so just kind of getting to see the options with Google Flights, and then you can book directly through the airline through Google Flights. And I strongly recommend doing that. Google Flights is all I use, and I think it's all you should use too. And another way you can book through the airline is by using credit card points and really saving money on flights, but that's a really complex topic. So if you want me to get more into that in another video, comment and let me know because I will talk about it, but just not enough time for this video. So the third resource is how I book my accommodations. So this is going to probably turn off people who've never solo traveled before, but I just want you to hear me out. Please hear me out. One of the best ways that you can save money on travel and meet people and kind of combat the fear of loneliness is by staying in hostels. The hostel horror film series is not real. It's not true. Hostels are actually just a really wonderful way to meet people and to save money. And when it comes to booking hostels, I use nothing except Hostelworld. Hostelworld is just a huge database where you can find any type of hostel you're looking for. If you like a party hostel, you can find that. If you want a more relaxed hostel, you can find that. It'll compare prices, you can read reviews, and it's just a really informative way to find what you're looking for. I do book directly through Hostelworld. I've done it probably 50 times and I have never had any issues. I know a lot of people are very hesitant about staying in hostels, and I totally understand that, especially if you are a very private person. But I will tell you, most hostels do have private rooms, and they do tend to be a little cheaper than your average hotel. It's gonna depend a little bit, but you can still have the hostel experience and still stay somewhere pretty budget friendly without sharing a dorm with 10 people. But my honest opinion is that if you pick a hostel that has the little like privacy curtains, it's not so bad. I really don't personally mind sharing a room with people. I think it can be kind of fun. I don't have any horror stories. I've never had any issues with theft or people being super weird, a couple like little tiny things, but I mean, it's just never been a problem, so I continue to stay in them. Yeah, I think that when it comes to just finding affordable accommodation and really having a good solo travel experience, I think that hostels are kind of the heart and soul in that, especially in places like Southeast Asia or Europe, just fantastic hostels where you're gonna meet awesome people who are very like-minded and are also probably traveling solo. So what a way to make friends. Yeah, Hostelworld is the way to go when it comes to booking hostels. And when it comes to just booking like regular accommodations, I like Hotels.com because like with their loyalty program, you can get like cash back to use later for bookings. So you can save money that way. I also will occasionally use Airbnb or something similar. Yeah, besides Hostelworld, I'm honestly not super particular about like hotel bookings. I'll kind of just use anything for that. Now, number 4 is something that you should have set up right before you go, and you should not skip this step. Like, you cannot skip it. It is so important. You must enroll in travel insurance. And fortunately, I have a very strong recommendation, and that is Safety Wing, who is very kindly partnering with me on this video. But now let me first explain why travel insurance is so important. Now, when you are planning your trip, you hope that you're gonna have a good time, and you probably are. But the reality is that anything can happen anywhere, and that is including when you travel. You could get in an accident, you could get sick, you could have to have an unplanned overnight somewhere due to travel delays. You may have to evacuate due to, I don't know, a pandemic or just some sort of civil unrest. These things are not super likely to happen, but they could happen. And in the event that something does happen, you'll be very grateful that you have travel insurance. You really hope that you don't have to use it. I have personally never actually had to use my travel insurance, but I am always very grateful that I have it. And you also want to make sure that the coverage you have is reliable. Now, I've been using Safety Wing for a couple of years, and what I like most about Safety Wing is just how affordable their rates are, like if you're traveling long term. Their Nomad insurance starts at $56 a month, and you can get really great general coverage just from that. You can also choose their new Complete plan if you want to play it extra safe. You can also add on extra coverage if you are bringing some expensive electronics, or if you are doing some sort of extreme sport while you're traveling. And now, while when you go on Safety Wing's website, it will show you like a monthly rate, you can actually use Safety Wing for a shorter trip. Safety Wing will cover a trip that is a minimum of 5 days long, and the price will fluctuate just based on how long the trip is, and again, just what you want to be covered for. You can sign up before your trip, which I would recommend, or you can also sign up while you're there. Either way, travel insurance is an absolute essential, and Safety Wing will have you covered. To enroll in Safety Wing's coverage, or just to learn more about it, feel free to click the link in my bio to check out Safety Wing, and thank you again, Safety Wing, for partnering with me. And finally, resource number 5, once you land in another country, you're gonna need some cellular data. Unless your cell provider has a really good international like coverage plan that's affordable, I recommend just turning that off and using an eSIM. You technically could go without an eSIM and just rely on hotel Wi-Fi or like cafe Wi-Fi, but I don't recommend it. It's a good security blanket if you get lost, if you need to problem solve, just if you need to access the internet somehow. It's important to have. Yes, you can download the Google map for where you're going beforehand and then navigate without data, but sometimes I forget to do that, or sometimes I really need to look something up and it can't wait until I have access to Wi-Fi, so eSIM it is. There's several good eSIM companies. I personally really like Aralo. I just find it very affordable, very easy to use. You can purchase an eSIM for the particular country you're visiting, or you can pick one that's regional or global. You can set how many days you want it for. It's really easy to add extra data. It's also really easy to install, so It's just reliable, it's really affordable, and I just think that it's an essential. So those are the 5 resources that I think are absolutely essential for solo travel. Now I'm gonna share a little bonus that I like to use for planning experiences, and that is Get Your Guide. I like Get Your Guide because it's reliable, it's legitimate, definitely read reviews though. And I also do find that a lot of the prices of experiences are pretty reasonable. You can book day trips, tours, transportation, lots of different options there. I do use other platforms like Klook or Viator here and there, but Get Your Guide just tends to be the most dependable, and it's the one that I've had the best experience with. It's also a really useful way to kind of get ideas for what you want to do. If I'm going somewhere and I have a free day and I'm not really sure how I want to spend it, I'll just like enter the country or the city I'm going to, and it'll just show me the options I have, and if I'm interested, then I'll book something from there. It's also a really good way to meet people because most of the activities in Get Your Guide are tours, so you can meet other travelers. So now that I've talked about the resources that you need to start traveling, I'm gonna start addressing just the common hesitations that stop people from traveling. The biggest one is safety, and the first thing I want to say is that if you are concerned about safety, your feelings are valid. It is true, especially as women, that we have safety concerns that we just have to worry about. It's unfortunate, but we can never fully let our guard down. But that doesn't mean that we can't travel solo and have a really good time and have a very safe experience. I don't think that the fact that something could happen should stop you from solo traveling, and here's why. Anything that can happen to you in another country can probably happen to you at home. I live in the heart of Seattle, and the worst things that have ever happened to me safety-wise have happened in my own city. And I don't even consider Seattle to be a dangerous city necessarily. I'm just saying that anything could happen to you abroad could also happen to you at home. As long as you're alive, something could happen. Just something bad could happen to you while you're out running errands or grabbing your morning coffee. It's the same thing if you travel. Something could happen, but it probably won't. This is purely anecdotal. I've traveled to over 20 countries solo. Nothing bad has ever happened to me. I've been in some uncomfortable situations. A guy was following me around in Paris. I don't think he had any intention of harming me, but that was annoying. It was a little scary, but I found my way out of it. It was fine. And then also I had a kind of uncomfortable encounter in Morocco with someone who was demanding money over something stupid. So I've been in uncomfortable situations, but I've never felt in danger. If I'm gonna be completely honest, I usually feel safer other places than I do at home. The biggest thing you'll need to worry about safety-wise, especially in parts of Europe, is just pickpocketing, theft, things like that. That's much more likely to happen to you than something violent. And obviously that's not ideal, but having your phone stolen is a little better than getting seriously hurt. If you're worried about safety, I get it. I hear you. You are right to be concerned. Just don't let that stop you. There are safety precautions that I follow anywhere I go. Does not matter. I also follow these precautions when I'm just leaving my apartment. And that is that I keep all of my belongings close to me. I don't keep things in my back pockets. I put things in a bag, I zip the bag, and I hold on to it. I make sure that nobody can just grab something, because that's the thing with pickpocketing. It happens so fast. I did have my wallet stolen at a bar in my home city, and it was like, open my bag for 10 seconds, and that was already too late. It happens quick, so just make sure you're always on top of things. I try to give myself a pretty reasonable curfew. If I am out alone at night, I try to stick to well-lit, busy streets where there's people around. That's gonna be much safer than wandering off in some dark street. Don't go to a stranger's home by yourself, don't get into a stranger's car, just the same things that you wouldn't do at home, you also shouldn't do when you're traveling. I also just check in with my friends and family back home, let them know that I'm okay. I share my itinerary with them. I also just keep copies of my passport and my insurance and just important stuff. There's a lot of ways to make sure that you are the safest that you can possibly be. Anything can happen, and I realize that, but just you shouldn't let the fear of something happening stop you. The next hesitation is money. Just like, how do you afford to travel? And I totally get it, and I realize that everybody's situation is different, and I'm speaking very generally. If what I'm saying just does not resonate with you or your situation, own that and just realize that maybe travel just isn't right for you right now. That could change one day, but it's just we all have different circumstances and priorities. For the people who are ready to travel and do want to make it happen, I can tell you that it is possible to travel on a budget, and it is possible to travel in a pretty affordable way. Travel is a privilege. Travel will always require money, but some of the comments I get, I think people assume that I'm spending like $5,000 to $10,000 per trip when I have never spent that much on a trip. Not even close, actually. Travel can be expensive. There's a reason why I haven't been to Antarctica yet. It's because that is a minimum of 10 grand. But just a lot of places in the world are very affordable, especially once you get there. Your round trip flight is gonna be by far the biggest expense. If you can get that at the lowest rate possible, once you're there, you can actually save quite a bit of money, like with hostels. Like hostels can literally save you hundreds of dollars per trip. A lot of countries have really good public transportation where their trains and their buses and their metros are a really affordable way to get around. Once I get somewhere, I'm usually not spending that much money on transportation. And then with food, you don't have to eat at a fancy restaurant like 3 times a day. You can eat street food, you can go grocery shopping and buy food there. And when it comes to experiences, I say just choose what you really wanna do. Like if you don't wanna go to every single museum around, you don't have to. Like just pick and choose the things that are the most appealing to you and put your money towards that. But there's also so many like free or really cheap things to do everywhere you go, so you have options. I just want you to unlearn the misconception that travel is unaffordable, it's way too expensive, it's only for rich people. It is truly not. I have backpacked Europe with $400 in my pocket. Not the smartest idea, but I've done it. I've stayed at hostels for $5 a night, $10 a night, $15 a night, and you may assume that they're a total dump, but here's the $5 a night hostel I stayed at in Cambodia. Here is the $9 a night hostel I stayed at in Morocco. Here is the whole house I stayed at for $65 a night in Thailand. It does take some money to get somewhere, but then once you're there, you'd be pleasantly surprised on just how little you're actually spending. Like you should certainly be prepared for emergencies or for unexpected hiccups. They do happen, but really though, like the whole misconception that traveling just costs multiple thousands of dollars no matter where you go, it's just not true, and we gotta unlearn that. The other hesitation I hear about is just not wanting to feel lonely. And that is why I keep recommending hostels. Hostels are so much more than a dormitory. A lot of hostels have a bar where you can sit in the hostel bar and within an hour you will have plans for the night. Also, a lot of hostels will host family dinners and walking tours and pub crawls and lots of different things. The whole point of a hostel is to meet other travelers and to connect with the city you're in. Hostels will also help you with logistics and might help you book other travels. And if you really want to save money and you want to stay somewhere more long-term, you can work at hostels. Hostels will usually give you a free bed and sometimes even a free meal and other things for just a few hours of work a day. So just saying. And if hostels aren't your thing, there are tours you can sign up for. There's food tours, walking tours. You can also just meet cool people on the street. I've done that plenty of times. Like that's kind of the fun thing about traveling is like you just never know who you're gonna meet. And plus the great thing about solo travel is that if you want time alone, you can have time alone. The other hesitation that I hear about all the time is about language barriers. This might be a hot take, but I don't think that that's a legitimate concern. If you're a fluent English speaker, you don't have much to worry about in most places of the world. I'm not saying that this is a good thing or that I agree with it, but English has become a universal language and people tend to be very accommodating to English speakers. Some more prominent than others, but still, like, I've never been somewhere where I've struggled to communicate with people in some way. Especially because we live in the age of Google Translate, where you can like have somebody talk into your phone, it'll translate it, or you can scan text to like get the translation. That helped me so much in Taiwan. Like just, it's never been easier to communicate with people going into 2026. And now again, some places are gonna be more English friendly than others. There's some places that are going to be extremely English friendly and then places that'll just be a little bit here and there. And now with me saying that you shouldn't worry about English barriers, I am not saying that you shouldn't still learn the bare basics of the language for where you're going. You definitely should, and locals are going to really appreciate that gesture. Just don't think that you need to practice a language for a year in order to visit somewhere. I mean, unless you want to, but just the bare basics you should learn is thank you, please, hello, goodbye, excuse me, and sorry. Learn those and that will get you very far. Anything else is just extra. In a world where English is a pretty universal language, just don't let a language barrier stop you. Even when there are language barriers, it's just never been easier to work with them. So I've given you all the reasons why you should travel, and I've given you the resources, and I have addressed most of the common hesitations. Now it's time for the fun part, and that is just giving you my recommendations for where you should take your first solo trip. I actually have a video from earlier this year that goes more into detail on my solo travel recommendations, but I will just still share some of my recommendations here. The majority of my solo travels has been through Europe and Asia, including the Middle East. I've also traveled solo to Morocco and Canada and Mexico, and also just domestic solo travel. Like I go to New York solo a lot. I always recommend Southeast Asia, so think Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia, Indonesia. And the reason why is because it's just a fantastic region. It's very affordable. Getting there will be by far your biggest expense. And then once you're there, like God, your dollar goes such a long way. Like you can find very, very cheap accommodations. You can eat great meals for a very low price. The travel infrastructure is really good throughout most of Southeast Asia. It's very easy to get around affordably. It's a great region. Plus also the locals are so fantastic. They're so nice. Very English friendly in most places, and it's a great region. Plus you'll meet a lot of other travelers there too. I actually have a video where I talk all about my 2 months that I spent in Southeast Asia, and I talk about my itinerary and just everything, so I will link that down below if you want to just get some ideas. I also often recommend Europe just as a continent because most of the countries are pretty small, so they're very easy to kind of bounce around. If you want to spend 2 weeks in Europe, you can very realistically visit 3, maybe 4 countries and not feel like you've completely exhausted yourself. Europe has such a good railway system, a good bus system, very, very, very easy to get around, and also pretty cheap too. Europe also has a lot of decent budget airlines and really good hostels and affordable accommodation, but it's still gonna be more expensive than Southeast Asia. Some countries in Europe are gonna be more expensive than others. Italy is gonna be much more expensive than the Czech Republic. Amsterdam is gonna be a much more expensive city than, say, Tallinn, Estonia. So how expensive Europe is will really just depend on where you are. Typically, the more west you get, the more expensive, and then once you get into Eastern Europe, it's actually very affordable. I stayed in this really nice hostel in Poland for like less than $10 a night. It is definitely very possible to visit Europe on a budget, and it's a really great way to visit multiple countries or go multiple places if you're interested. But just in general, Eastern Europe is going to be more budget friendly than Western Europe. And just keep in mind that these are my recommendations based on my own experiences. So I can't fully recommend Latin America only because I haven't really seen enough of it. I went to Mexico solo and it's wonderful, totally recommend it, but I haven't been anywhere in Central America, though that will be changing in February. I also have not been to South America yet, so I hope to recommend these places. I just can't speak from experience yet. But if you have been to any of those countries solo, please let me know your experience. I really want to hear your thoughts because I too want inspiration. So just keep that in mind. I can only recommend based off my own experiences. I have mostly traveled solo through Europe. That's how I started. I've branched into Asia. I think Southeast Asia is the most doable. I think the Middle East, at least Oman and the UAE, are very safe. I just don't find them as affordable as Southeast Asia. And even somewhere like Japan can be very beginner friendly too. So you have options. I think you should ultimately just pick whatever country or region you feel the most drawn to. So I hope I've shown you now that solo travel is not only totally worth it, it's totally doable. I mean it when I say that solo travel has been the most impactful and most meaningful thing I've ever done, and I want the same for you. And if I can do it, so can anybody. Let 2026 be the year that you start solo traveling, even if it's within your own country. Like, feel free to test it out on a local level and then branch out from there. You can start small and then you can work your way up. Your first solo trip does not have to be a one-year backpacking trip, though a lot of people do it and a lot of people have a great time. So if you want to do that, go for it. I know I spoke mostly about international travel, but you can apply a lot of the similar things I say to domestic travel as well. Just do what you're most comfortable with initially. Just don't let the fear stop you. Remember, feel the fear, do it anyway. You'll be so happy you did. Thank you so much for watching and listening. So have you solo traveled before? And if yes, where did you go and what did you think? And if you are considering solo travel, where do you most want to go? Where are you most interested in? And what questions or blocks are still in the way? Do you feel like there's something I didn't address or something you want more information on? Please let me know. Like, I want to ultimately serve you guys and be helpful. And also please share your 2026 solo travel plans. I do have 2 solo trips that are in the works. I will reveal them at a later date. I never disclose my travels before I go, but I will tell you some places that I am interested in, maybe later in 2026, going into 2027. Central Asia is on my radar, like Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan just look stunning. I've been hearing a lot about them. I'm also very interested in South America, like Argentina, Chile, Peru, Brazil. Those are very high on my radar. I hope to make them happen soon. I haven't planned or booked any of these, but they're on my radar. All right, that's all I got for you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.